Yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm spiritual, but I'd say I'm more energy. And yeah, like I remember someone that at one point was I don't know the word peer. I don't even really like the word peer, man. There's something about it. Maybe it sounds like peer, like down by the river or the sea or whatever. But yeah, someone who kind of I looked up to as someone that I believe had more information or just I can't even explain it, but it's just like I trusted that person to kind of be, do you know what I'm saying, like just on a higher level, do you know what I'm saying? And that changed later, you know what I mean? Everyone's mortal, man. When you're young, you think people are Superman, but do you know what I'm saying? Like one weird conversation about what was it like pro sex isn't just for procreation, if you say so, cuz. You know what I mean? Like I'm a naturist, man. So at the end of the day, like the two bits were made for a specific reason. So you know what I mean? Like if you can't create with two bits, then it's just exercise, isn't it? Like man will go gym, play football, athletics. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, do you know what I mean? And I'm definitely not gonna get an STD from playing football. Do you know what I mean? But yeah. So this person like who I looked up to at the time, and I was only about 13, I think 13, probably going on 14. I think it was summer holidays, so went for a visit. So yeah, so they said you're so sharp, you're gonna cut yourself. And it was like the cut yourself was a little bit, but at that age I just laughed about everything, like everything the person said was just funny to me. So I'm just absorbing it as just as like it's just a joke or whatever. And then later on I kind of understood like what was meant, like I'm just so someone gave a great description, and it was like, yeah, and I love it when people give descriptions that I haven't thought about, because I'm quite, I don't know, man, like I'm quite egotistical about my creatives and the way I can describe things. You see what I mean? So yeah, so later on, like I, I someone said that I'm hypersensitive. Yeah, I'm hypersensitive. Sure, that's what they said. So basically, I just absorb things just on a higher level. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, something else. Someone else said I've got. They said you've got the inquisitiveness of a child. So yeah, I'm very much in it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that comes from just like a love of art. From when I spent a little bit of time in Barbados, like lucky enough through like like my family's hard work, we had like a TV. So man used to watch, I think the first thing I used to watch was like probably Sesame Street. They used to have Sports Billies, um some Daisy Lives and stuff like that. So from from as long as I can remember, I was just like addicted to art. Do you know what I'm saying? So just through absorbing it, when you're then going to do it yourself, obviously, the kind of person I am, I don't want to just, I mean, all right, fair enough. Like I did this essay in primary school one time, and I pretty much just plagiarized The Day the Earth Stood Still, and that's the original black and white version. Do you know what I mean? But I was in primary school. But so yeah, so when it comes to kind of the expression, like you know I'm very prideful that I think the way I describe stuff in my music and my lyrics and stuff like that, and um my creation is very specific to me, and it's individual to my expressions. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're listening to my music or watching something I've done visually, like it's in my world. You're not really going to be thinking about anyone else. um so yeah, so I'm very, 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 very aware, and I see things and certain things. But on the flip side of that, relating to like so sharp you could cut yourself, it's like because of the environment I grew up in, there was a very much working class, limited options. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, if you check the statistics of the UK, high percentage, like in those times, wouldn't travel out of the country. It was very much just stay in your local thing. Do you know what I mean? So the era I grew up in was very kind of like, it was very closed. Do you see what I'm saying? So I didn't really see the world for the world that it was, because I was so absorbed in like art, specifically television, music, um, you know, yeah, even in Barbados, yeah, the music as well was quite influential. Remember, like my parents used to have, family used to have these like box sets of vinyl. I think there was a yellow one, and then there was another color one as well. Had probably maybe like four vinyls in it. So it was all kind of like classical kind of type music and stuff like that. And then obviously, you got the reggae playing. Like Yellow Man was big at the time. I think I'm Getting Married like was bussing. Rivers of Babylon, was bussing. So the music was very influential as well. So yeah, moving down to Medway, which was definitely a culture shock. But to be quite truthful, apart from Barbados, when we came back, we was in Northwood, Broccoli for a little while. But those days, like that, Africa hadn't arrived as it has now. So it was pretty much, it was always obvious. You know what I'm saying? But moving down to a Medway towns, obviously, like it's you know what I mean, and it's kind of quite hardcore working class as well as far as the dialect and stuff like that. So just off of like what I was taught and stuff, indoctrinated in religion and stuff like that, I didn't really see the world as the world really was. You know what I mean? I saw it in Pete's Dragon. I saw it as E.T. I saw it as Sesame Street. You know what I mean? Like there was always something good that would happen at the end. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm so sharp. You're so sharp. You're gonna cut yourself. Kicked in later when I realized, yeah, I've got this energy or this ability to see energy, the algorithms or whatever, and kind of discern certain things. But it was really more focused towards the story of there's going to be a good ending. Whereas obviously in reality, there's that's not the truth. Like there hasn't been a good ending yet. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about Switzerland. Do you know what I mean? It's supposed to be a place of like real balance, but if you check the world, as far as I know, there's not any country that's achieved that the good story, the ending, the story ending good. Do you see what I mean? Like it's still wars going on, it's still crimes going on, still poverty, it's still all that kind of stuff. So my sharpness would actually cut myself, because when it was time to kind of go into like the real world, it's like I just didn't fit in. You know, it's like, if I was lucky enough to be a Sydney Poitier or a Denzel Washington, you know, I may have been able to just carry on in the reality that I was living in, which is more of an artistic and expressive kind of reality. So that's how I was really living as an artist rather than living like real. So, for example, living in the Matrix and not understanding that I'm actually in Zion. Do you know what I'm saying? Or outside of the Matrix, in Nebuchadnezzar or whatever. So yeah, so when I realized that, it was kind of like it was a lot of trauma. Do you know what I mean? And as you get older, relationships change. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, just a lot of stuff that I believed in, it just wasn't real. Friendships that I thought were real, they weren't real. Things that people said I thought were real, they weren't real. Do you see what I mean? So it was like my sharpness actually did cut myself, because I had to subconsciously, not even knowing, I cut myself from reality as it was because I just couldn't deal with it. There were a few specific things that I can think of. Do you know what I'm saying? But really, it was loads of little things that just kind of built up. And because I still had the fantasy of, yeah, I've got amazing people around me, and you know, there's amazing people in the world, and I still kind of semi had a belief in like religion and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like once all of that faded, it was like I don't want to be in this reality. Do you know what I'm saying? So I actually ended up cutting myself. Do you see what I mean? Because most of the people in my environment, they were older than me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like mentally, they understood what the real world was, and they basically just fit in where you can get in or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So they were able to maneuver that. Me, although I was with them and I was seeing stuff that was going on, my whole focus was really just like I just love human beings. I just love being around people. It's just, it's like it's live film, it's live TV, it's live music. So I wasn't really actually understanding the shock waves that were being reverberated in my reality, in my society, in my environment. And when I did, it was just I just felt lost. Do you see what I mean? And then with relationships starting to break down, and do you know what I'm saying, just feeling more disheartened with stuff, I actually just I cut myself, like, because I knew the type of person I am, because I'm so good intention, like I would never be able to, they, the people around me would never let me go because they know they can always use me. So subconsciously I took steps where I could cut myself. Do you see what I mean? It's like, you know, mental health, it's like part of my coping strategy has always been art. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like the more I found it difficult to deal with the institutional racism, the social racism, just the inhumanity within people and stuff like that. My coping strategy was always just like art, writing lyrics and, you know, turning it into something to create that story where it's got a good ending. So yeah, so I ended up cutting myself from reality realistically, and I feel I'm still I'm still dead. You know what I'm saying? Like it's but um well, not but however, I think everyone forwards to that point where you have to start building your reality. You have to say, all right, what do I actually want? How do I actually want it? And how am I gonna go about, you know, getting it? So yeah, so it's like, yeah, so sharp. I cut myself. Do you know what I mean? It's like I didn't want to play for the team anymore. So I was just like, let me try and find a way to get out of this, because I'll be truthful. It's like in the right environment, I would have been my culture's worst nightmare, because I would have just blindly believed what the government was telling me, what society was telling me, and this is. Do you see what I mean? So I yeah, I would have been a nightmare for my culture. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, my experience with people within the government, the councils and stuff like that from our culture and stuff like that, they're like they're two, three times worse than the slave master. Like, and it's really because, don't really like to diss, but they're cowards and they're scared. And I understand why they're scared. If you look at the history of the world and what this country has done specifically to the African continent and the African people, I understand why they're scared, and I understand why they would rather do harm to their own people or someone that looks like them to try and get that little leg up and get that position than cutting themselves and just being stuck. Do you know what I mean? Because most of the people I see that try and detach from reality is either serious mental health problems, physical assaults because you're leaving the crew or whatever like that. So do you know what I mean? Like you're not one of us anymore. Or, do you know what I mean? Relationships breaking down. People can't have contact with the people they love anymore because you know what I mean. It's like you know. So yeah. So it's like it's kind of lonely out here, but back to the art and stuff like that. Clint Eastwood and that, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, just riding alone, cuts. Do you know what I mean? Just try to create my actual world and find a space where it's what I've decided that I want and I've actually got some control. So I'd rather I'd rather just rather not having any control whatsoever and being a modern day slave, being a victim. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm happy to be the victim. Do you know what I mean? And I'll be truthful, I've always manipulated the victim, man. You know what I mean? Big up, like I said on one of the other freestyle thinkings, so like the Caribbean brethren that were around me that were protecting me and stuff. I for as much as I wasn't a physical kind of fight, my mind was there. So I'll be truthful, honestly and truthfully, manipulated certain situations so I could get back up and stuff like that. But yeah, physical abuse is real. Do you know what I mean? Like stories every day about this happening, that this attack, that attack. So yeah, I was so sharp that I cut myself. However, if you can create your own team and create your own reality, like you can't be cut. See what I mean? So right now, all I'm trying to do is just like create my version of Zion and yeah, man, see if can get all of the African descendant people in the UK to get together, approach African governments and say, yo, can we buy some land, create like sovereign states throughout the continent and yeah, and actually try and have the first country that is actually successful, a country that's based on free food, free energy on a basic level, what you need to survive, energy, every single person in the country would have guaranteed housing. So you couldn't. So it's basically just like a hotel. So if there are not any houses, no one can come into the country unless they're visiting like for a holiday and they're going to a hotel or whatever. So and a new style government where basically everyone votes individually and we have facilitators like the government, but they're directly working for the people. So if 51% of the people say, oh, we should buy this kind of bread or we should get brown basmati, then that's what we do. Do you see what I mean? So a whole new society. So taking away the fear of hunger and lack of shelter and really just seeing what the human can really achieve when you take away those fears, lack of being hungry, of being thirsty, of not having any shelter. Obviously, you can't force people to be friends with each other, but I would assume um, that once you take away those hardships out of society, then you've got a totally different human being that you're dealing with. So yeah, so sharp, I cut myself.